Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. We have Phil Perry and Matt Cassel joining in just a second, but there's been a lot of talk this week about play tipping. Mark Daniels from Mass Live overheard some players in the locker room talking about the Colts knowing some of what plays the Patriots were calling and showed up in the right place at the right time. Bill Belichick confirmed it this week. Here's Bill. Sound is brought to you by Shaw's. They are perfecting the art of fresh.
Yeah, I thought that there were two or three plays for sure that Leonard really, got a big jump on and stopped us basically on those plays. Mosley got a couple of those. A couple weeks ago in the Jets game, it looked like Mosley, almost looked like he heard the play in the huddle. He was on it so fast, and Leonard had a couple like that too. So whether that's something we were giving away or just something that he anticipated based on whatever the keys were that he might have picked up, we certainly want to try to prevent that.
Now, Phil, endeavoring to show great initiative, then got Dante Scarnecchia, former Patriots offensive line coach, a legend, to weigh in on Phil's Next Pats podcast about this play tipping. Is this unusual, Dante?
I think that it's not unusual because we all have to understand this. Those guys are getting paid over on the other side too. And so guys like CJ Mosley and the guy from Indianapolis, they're both middle linebackers, and they study the game, and they study opponents' formations and tendencies out of those formations. And when they see the back behind the quarterback, they say, okay, it could be this, or if he's offset here, it could be this. And I mean, they understand all that stuff. So, yes, I think that you're seeing two really good players on defense that probably work at the game very hard and study their opponents very hard and are able to make plays as a result of that. But I think that that's part of, as an offensive coach, where you look at it and say, okay, when we line up in this formation, it can't just always be this. It has to be something else too.
Now, I endeavored to bring in Matt Cassel, former Patriots quarterback, a Pro Bowler with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's going to tell us just how often this happens and how a quarterback or an offense can avert this kind of crisis. Enjoy. All right, so there you have it. Matt Cassel, welcome in, and you too, Phil. How does that happen? How often does that happen that a defense, gets to skinny on what you're doing and calls them right all the time? It sounds as if it's frequent.
It is frequent. It's something that's commonplace. And look, you got a lot of good players on the opposite side of the ball. And you talk about the linebacker position. What makes these guys elite? The Patrick Willis's when I played, the Ray Lewis's, Luke Kuechly, Zach Thomas. These type of guys are not just good physically, but they're good from a mental side. And they do their homework and they study and they look at formational tendencies. They look at what you're doing at the offensive line. If you have any tall tale signs about weight distribution, anything like that. So it'll happen throughout the course of the game. And there's occasionally where they get it right and they're on it in a particular formation. I'll never forget we were playing against the Carolina Panthers and we used to run the stack route.
Were you with New England at the time?
No, I was with the Cowboys, and I'm out on the field. We run the stack route, and all of a sudden, Luke is as I start my cadence is saying, "Be ready for the slip scene." He starts cheating over. He's screaming at the two DBs. They bum rush the slip screen. I got to dirt it right in the ground, and I was so upset. And I was like, "What do you do in that circumstance?" But again, sometimes you got to give your hats off to good players. They're good for a reason, and a lot of the times it's because they do their homework. They've got good coaching, and they can get a jump on some of those things.
But they got good coaching. But Phil, you and I have covered Bill for a long time, and Matt, you've been around him for a long time.
Right.
If there's one thing that Bill is adamant about, Phil, it's making sure that nobody knows anything about what the Patriots are doing. For him to acknowledge that, yeah, they got us, it's just crazy.
It's really remarkable.
It's not crazy that they did.
Yeah,
it's not crazy that they got it. It's just for Bill to just be kind of, yeah, well,
Well, and because we've heard him compliment people like Josh McDaniels in the past when he's taken a formation or a certain play look and then done something differently because it catches the defense off guard. And Bill will point it out in his film sessions with Scott Zolak, somewhere at Gillette Stadium and say, hey, we had run this before and we ran it a little different way. And we came to the sideline and we tried something different because we saw the safety reacted this way the first time. And then we hit him for a big play down the middle because that safety did the same thing. And we did something different. I think that's to me where some of the concerning parts of this offense are right now, especially after talking to Dante Scarnecchia earlier this week. It does seem like in an attempt to simplify things and streamline things in their offense to make it easier for the people within the building, whether it's the players themselves or the coaching staff, which is new, of course, they have gone so far in that direction now that they might be predictable. That to me would be the concern.
Let's hear from Dante. Speaking with Phil, you already heard him at the top of the Next Pats podcast. Here he is talking about the running game and really the very basic nature of it at this point.
I see it as very simple. I don't think they, like to your point, they run they run 3 runs basically. And I'm sure there's variations off all that. And then, they have their play actions and run action schemes, and that's all good. And then, of course, they drop back. I think screens, screens are just part of it. They should be part of any team's offense. We've always been a good screen team. And I like screens because screens protect drop back. Okay. And I think it's really important for your run actions to protect your runs, for your screens to protect your drop back protection systems and things like that. And I think that's what the whole thing's all about, is protecting the things you do well with other things and giving the defense enough mix where they're saying, oh, hell, these guys got an answer for a lot of things. So I think that's what you really need to do.
So, Matt, you hear Dante there say they basically have 3 runs. I think it's a lot of the things that we've all seen, whether it's the power runs, the pulling guards, or the zone runs that they still sprinkle in there. They do their crack toss runs. Dante did mention, he's seen a little bit more trap lately. But, at the end of the day, to him, describing it for us, it sounds relatively simple. Are you seeing the same thing in terms of their running game?
It is. I mean, they run only, a handful of different run plays that they are consistent at, and they think that they do well. And so they major in that. And that's not necessarily something that's a bad thing, but at the same time, the diversity in your run game is always key, because you don't want to give the opponent the same look consistently. And I'm talking about formationally, and you can run those same looks, but you've got to give it window dressing, and you got to do it at a different formations, and you've got to do it at package it with different motions and stuff so that they can't get a beat on it. But again, when you go into a ball game, there usually are only a handful of runs that you really feel good about. And then there's some game plan things in terms of 3rd and short, red zone, goal line offense, and those get more sophisticated down the line. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, every time you go into a game, it's usually these handful of core plays, core runs that you do well, that your guys know and know the blocking schemes on.
Here's what's distressing for me. I understand that there are elemental runs in what every team's going to do. There's basic core things, and I'm not assailing you here. But they didn't run play action at the beginning of the year, barely at all. They didn't really run any motion. We had the stats showing up to show us that early in the season. And now, as a result, they're an eminently predictable offense because they can't really throw. They can't protect, and the runs are basic. They don't want to do any kind of RPOs. They don't want to do any motion. They don't want to do any play action. They've been forced to do so as the season's gone along because of complaints and inefficiency. This is the polar opposite of the Josh McDaniels offense, which was loaded with window dressing, loaded with motions, loaded with maybe overloaded at times. But it's primitive. It's predictable. It's such a massive step back. There's no wonder that Mac Jones is Johnny Mopes a lot every friggin' week. I don't blame him, although the moping is getting tiresome for me. It's insane how absolutely primitive the offense is. They are worse than I anticipated in terms of being novel, and it's going worse than I thought. And it's not Patricia's fault. He is, I believe, what all these people co-sign on his brilliance, but he just got set up to fail, Matt.
Well, I also think you got to take into account, right? You started to see the progress that was being made earlier in the season from the Miami game, the Steelers game, then into Baltimore, where they actually looked like an offense that was running efficiently and effectively. But then all of a sudden you have the setback with Mac Jones going out, and you have to go and simplify the plan against Green Bay, right? Brian Hoyer goes out, and you all of a sudden have Bailey Zappi, your third string quarterback, in the game that hasn't had a lot of reps. You do the same thing against Cleveland and the same thing against Detroit because you're simplifying it for a player that you know needs more growth. You need more time. So again, the formational stuff, the shifting, some of that stuff is so complex for young guys. And also to remember, you saw the delay of games in Green Bay even early on when they're stagnant, they're not motioning. So I'm sure that part of it was not putting too much on his plate, making sure that guy's comfortable. When Mac Jones came back in the building and then all of a sudden against Chicago, I think it was very similar approach because one, they didn't know where Mac Jones was going to be out. And they had this, the idea of playing both those guys. So once again, it was a simplistic game plan.
And now the cover is the Indian Jets. They had no protection. So it's the Indian Jets, no protection. The other games was Zappy. Beginning of the season, it was always the first game. Second game of the season was like, okay, hey, good game again. And then the Baltimore game, Phil, the one where they did look proficient, the one where they did look kind of shexy, they had 3 picks and they gave the game away.
I wonder too if now moving forward, or like even just looking at these last 2 games, if one of the reasons they're simple, if one of the reasons they are predictable, if one of the reasons it's been as stagnant as it's been, is because you just can't trust what you're getting from your offensive line.
Exactly.
And if you can't trust that anything's going to be blocked, then I'm not sure how exotic you can be. So that would be one reason for which I would be willing to give the play calling, I guess, a little bit of a pass here. Is just, I don't know how you call plays. I don't know how you design an offense when you can't block. And that's really, to me, been their primary issue of late. Right tackle has been an issue all year long. It continued to be an issue with Yodny Kajust out there the other day. But now left guard is an issue too. And I'm looking at that and I'm saying, well, Cole Strange was a first-round pick. And I know he's a rookie, and I know this is more football than he's ever played based on preseason. Now regular season, he's seen a lot of snaps. He's not a big guy to begin with. And so maybe he's hit a wall of sorts here. But you took the guy in the first round, and you need him. And when he's getting replaced for Isaiah Wynn hasn't been much better. So you have to find some consistency up front if you want to do anything offensively. I mean, if that's just going to be a problem the rest of the year, I think there are ways around it. They're already the last 2 weeks using a lot of screens, Matt. There's probably some other things they could do to hide their offensive line, but you can only do that for so long and continue to be an efficient offense. They just haven't found that mix yet, I think, because the offensive line has been as bad as it's been.
Maddening thing about it is if you look at, let's forget about the play calling. His hands are tied. It's the offensive line. So you go from that guy you're blaming over there to turn over here, and he's in charge of the offensive line too. And again, is he spread too friggin' thin? I don't know. But either way, everybody on the offensive line is retreating except for Mike Onwenu, and then Trent Brown has improved, Matthew.
Right. I mean, Trent Brown's improved, and then David Andrews being hurt has obviously been a big issue for this team because he's the centerpiece of this offensive line. He's the guy that communicates to everybody. And Cole Strange, let's be honest and let's be fair, to the start of this season, I mean, up through about probably week 6 or the last 2 weeks, he struggled a little bit, and I have to believe it's more mental errors than anything, but he was one of the more consistent guys on the offensive line, and it was playing extremely well. But then these last few weeks, they've been taking him out of the game because I have to believe it's more mental error than it is physical, because when he knows what he's doing, he can be physically stout. And I know he's a little bit undersized for the guard position, but at the same time, you see him, and you've seen him against quality opponents go out and just be a stud out there. So again, it's more of the issue's been the right tackle and the consistency at that position. And now with David Andrews being out, they're rotating guys in and out. So there's not that cohesive unit that you need. And it shows up. I mean, even if the defense knows what to do.
Hope. It's hope against hope to think you're going to take an FCS guard who's undersized and he's going to hold up all year. And that, again, I totally agree with you. We all sang the praises of Cole Strange. But the decisions behind putting these guys in these positions, whether it's Cole Strange or Matt Patricia, at some point, again, it's hope against hope. What faith did you have? Why would you be so cavalier with these decisions? Again, not with Cole Strange sucking. I don't think he sucks. I think he's going to have a fine career. But eventually, if you got a 295-pound guard who came from FCS, who's up against Quinnen Williams, Well, what do you think it's going to look like in week 9 when this friggin' season's usually over, Phil?
Have they gone outside the box too frequently, it sounds like, is what you're asking. And that's, one of the reasons why Bill Belichick became Bill Belichick is because of his outside the box thinking. But, you do that one too many times, and those are risks. Let's be honest. A lot of those decisions, they are risks, relative to how things are generally done around the NFL. And if those blow up in your face often enough, you can have a real mess on your hands. And that, to me, is the big question now, is when you go into this bye week and Bill Belichick's meeting with his coaches, and you're trying to design a plan for the second half of your season, how drastic can the changes be? How much different can things really look? Because you've put in a lot of time building this offense the way that you've built it. Can you really, in 1 week, make a serious pivot and go in a different direction, whether it's with how the coaching staff operates on the sidelines, who's calling plays, or if it's even just your core plays themselves? Can you change your identity that way? Or is it just, we've got what we've got and we've got to try to make it work?
I believe that I believe that you can go in and make fundamental changes. And I'm not saying just complete overhaul in terms of personnel, because you have the personnel that you have. So you got to make do with what you're going to do and get the best out of those guys. But you can make changes. You can actually motion. You can do those things that you need to do. You can implement different passing strategies in the game, whether it's an RPO system, whether it's you're not going to run a lot of zone read with Mac Jones. Unfortunately, that's just not it. Quick game, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you got to have a core and you've got to have a basis. You can't do a complete overhaul of schematically of what you're doing throughout the course of a year. It's just too tough to do over a 1 week process, but you do have to game plan. And when you guys are talking about Quentin Williams, when you're talking about DeForest Buckner, these are two of the best defensive linemen, defensive tackles in the game. And I don't care who's lined up there at the guard position. You could be an all-pro. They're going to make you look silly at times, and they're going to try to make your take advantage of your weaknesses. So you can point to Cole Strange struggling against guys like that, but there are 90% of the league at that guard position, I don't care who you are going to struggle against the top tier defensive tackles that those guys are.
To me, if they thought it was, hey, this is nature of the business, they wouldn't have pulled him out outright. And I think they're pulling him out, Phil, with Strange. Do you think he might be on the slight side? I mean, it could be showing up. I mean, you talked to him earlier in the year about his size.
Yeah, this is somebody who has to work really hard to keep on some mass. How difficult is it to make sure you're maintaining over the course of your first pro season when you're wearing down and you might be eating all the calories you can eat, but can you work out the same way that you're used to working out in order to keep on that mass? I think, that's something that he's probably trying to find a balance with right now as he goes through his first year here. I would just say, when you make an investment in a player like that at a position like that one, and I know those two players that he's seen the last 2 weeks are very, very good. The problem for him is that they're a very, very good interior defensive lineman almost every week. The Bills defensive line, who they still have to play twice, is arguably the best in football. I believe they lead the league in pressure rate right now, and they don't blitz all that much. That's just because they've invested heavily in their defensive line and they get after the quarterback. So that's a problem. And it's going to be a weekly issue if it is an issue right now with him. And to me, I think some of it, Matt, to your point, probably is mental, right? I couldn't help but notice there were a handful of snaps against Indianapolis when Cole Strange was in the game, and he wasn't in the game all that much, but it just looked like he was overpowered. And so that to me would be something that I think the team, again, you might just have to work around it. One of the things that Dante Scarnecchia kept bringing up was continuity, chemistry, consistency matters. If you can just settle on 5 guys and let them figure out their problems together, that's going to be best for your team in the end. So I think they have a real decision to make at left guard. And then once they make that decision, I would think they're hoping to make that decision this week during the bye, then just roll with it. And maybe by season's end, you're better off.
Matt, last word before we go to the break. You got fiery eyes right now.
No, I agree with you. They just got to find the consistency in the unit that they want to go with. The top 5 guys, you got to play them. They've got to figure it out. It's your offensive line is the one group that you need that cohesiveness. You need that unit to be the same guys out there each and every play, and that's what builds the chemistry for the offense. It's that and the quarterback position. You don't want musical chairs at those positions. Barring injury, I understand injury sometimes takes place, like with David Andrews, but if you can have the same consistent 5 guys that have the same message, now that unit continues to work to get better. And I just think that's what they've got to decide. They can't keep rotating guys in at right tackle, rotating guys at left tackle. I just think it messes up the mojo for that group.
I just don't think it's going to be able to be drastically repaired. You just don't have the parts in the garage to go and have it fixed. Even though when Andrews comes back, even when Cannon comes back, you might improve incrementally. But I think you're always going to say, oh, is that breaking down over there? Yeah, it is. That's an issue again. And you're going to have it all season long. All right. We'll be back right after the break. We told you they were coming. Here they come. Bi-week awards with Cassel, Perry, and this guy, me. All right, it's time for those bi-week awards. We have a lot of them in superlatives. First, I want to thank our guy, Zach Rasmussen from the Duckhorn Wine Company. Might have sent out a bottle of vino or two for the kids to enjoy on the bye. We appreciate that. We appreciate you listening. Please, folks, keep the swag coming. Is that against any kind of rules? It might be. Phil, offensive MVP, who you got?
Ramondre Stevenson. It should be against the rules to be this good after contact for this guy. Did you know over the last month, 79% of his rushing yards have come after contact? This guy is a monster despite all the offensive line issues. To me, he is the MVP, and it's really not that close.
Oh, God. People love to say it's not that close when it's actually close. Go ahead, Matt. Who you got?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to go with Jacoby Myers. I just think you talk about being accountable. You talk about being effective. You talk about going out and having consistency, game in, game out. He's always there. His route running ability is exceptional. He gets open. He creates separation, and he's been the security blanket for whoever's been in there playing quarterback. So I like Jacoby Myers as being the MVP at this point in the year for the offense.
I'm breaking the tie. Jacoby Myers, ladies and gentlemen, 40 catches. 40 catches so far. You know how many combined catches Bourne, Aguilar, and Devontae Parker have? 44. He's got 122 passer rating when you throw him the ball. He's catching a career high 77% of the passes he's been thrown. Phil, wake up. Defensive MVP. I go first because everybody knows who it is. So I'm going to Zagwin. Everyone zings. Zigs. I'm going to go with Dietrich Wise. Okay. I happily nominate Dietrich Wise for what he's giving the defense and the front seven. He's versatile. He's long. And he's out there all the time. He's played 521 snaps on defense and 45 on special teams. That was last year. This year, he's already at 461 and 71. Okay. The team leans on him and he's delivered. He makes everything that Matt Judon does possible. If it wasn't for Dietrich Wise, Matt Judon would be Cassius Marsh.
Oh, God. What do you hate more, Tom? What do you hate more? Yeah. People saying it's really not that close when it is actually close, or somebody filibustering and giving an answer that they know is wrong when the entire world knows what the correct answer actually is, which is Matthew Judon, because Matthew Judon not only is the Patriots defensive MVP, he might be defensive player of the year in the entire NFL right now. So stop trying.
I was ahead of the curve. I had him as that last year at the bye week. And I was
well, he is that dude this year at the bye week. 11.5 sacks. The guy has been on a mission, and he is just a wrecking ball out there. And he plays with intensity. He's the heartbeat of this defense. And so I mean, come on. Are we all
right? I know.
I mean, it's Judon. I mean, I like it. We gotta get.
I tried to throw it out there for a kid.
We can all be in agreement. It's Judon. I mean,
most pleasant surprise.
Most pleasant surprise for me this season, it's the cornerback position because, again, there was a lot of question marks coming into the season. No Stephon Gilmore after the trade. No J.C. Jackson. Is Jalen Mills going to step up? How's Jonathan Jones going to be? And I'll tell you what, there has been no issues in the secondary, particularly at the cornerback position. Jonathan Jones has been outstanding. He ranks ninth in Pro Football Focus. And Jack Jones ranks number 1 amongst every corner in the league in Pro Football Focus this year. So you got Jack Jones, who stepped up, Jonathan Jones, Jalen Mills is playing well, and that's been by far the most pleasant surprise to me of this season so far.
Phil?
Yeah, Matt wants to welcome the entire cornerback group up to the stage because he's an inclusive guy. He's a friendly guy, wants everybody to be happy. I'm sending most of the cornerback group back to the audience, and I'm letting Jack Jones accept this award as an individual award because he, to me, has been the most pleasant surprise. For him to get drafted in the 4th round, have some off-the-field issues. He had some athleticism potential issues based on how he tested at the combine. He was very light. I was wondering how it was going to translate to the next level. boy, has it translated. Matt mentioned number 1 in PFF grade. He also is top 5 when it comes to quarterback rating allowed at 49.4. That is ridiculous based on some of the other top corners in the NFL that are populated in that top 5 in that particular category. So unbelievable find in the 4th round for Bill Belichick.
I went with Jonathan Jones. Huge workload. He's allowing 46.7 completions and a passer rating of 55.4, but we're all correct. Biggest disappointment, I go first, Jonnu Smith. I can't imagine anyone's more disappointed than Jonnu about being a disappointment, but he's got 44 touchdowns. Excuse me, he's got 44 catches.
44?
And 1 touchdown in 24 games with the Patriots. He's only out there for 50% of the play. I mean, just use the guy or don't.
To me, Kendrick Bourne's an even bigger disappointment because somebody who I really respect in terms of his football acumen said that Kendrick Bourne was going to have a Deebo Samuel type of impact, type of season for the Patriots this year. I can't remember who that was specifically. I don't know if you guys remember that, who was doing the Deebo to Kendrick Bourne comps. But be that as it may, but yeah, no, was it? It couldn't have been. Was it? I think it was Tom. Yeah, it was Tom Curran. Tom Curran, really smart guy, but that has not come to fruition at all. He's 14 catches and 167 yards. That to me, before the season, Matt, that would have sounded like a 3-game output, not an 8-game output, which is what it's been. Disappointing.
Disappointing. For me, it's Mac Jones. I mean, I knew that there was going to be a process to this season of getting comfortable with the new coaching staff and everything going on, but I didn't anticipate the regression and what it looked like in terms of turnovers and bad turnovers at that point. So Mac Jones has been somewhat of a disappointment to me, and I know that there's a lot that goes into that.
Best value and worst value. I'm throwing them in together. I got Mike Onwenu for the best value, $595,000 worth of salary. Excuse me. That's why I have to put these on. $895. He just got a $300,000 raise. $895 in salary. He's got a cap at $945. The rest of the offensive line starters are making $21 million. And your worst value is Nelson Aguilar. Patriots, they went shopping like drunken sailors in the 2021 free agent period, and that was the only guy on the shelf that they thought was good. Making $9 million, he's got 15 catches. Ain't good.
Best value for me right now, I mean, Phil just talked about it. Jack Jones, 4th round pick. Where they picked him up, I don't know what the expectation level, but he has stepped up. He's been outstanding. And so for the value pick right there, I think Jack Jones there. And then for the worst value right now, it's Jonnu Smith. You talked about him. He had signed a $50 million contract, and really his play hasn't fit the bill so far.
Best value for me is David Andrews. I think this time that he has missed has really highlighted his value for the team with the offensive line going the way it's gone. So he's one of your most consistent players at a really important position. He also has functioned as a coach for chunks of this season. Early on in the season when Billy Yates wasn't even on the sidelines, he's up in the press box. Matt Patricia's trying to do the offense coordinator thing. It was David Andrews there holding the iPads on the sidelines, trying to go over the pictures with his teammates. So they put a ton on that guy's plate. Just about $5 million per year. Great value. Worst value is Isaiah Wynn. I can't believe you guys whiffed on that. $10 million this year.
Maybe people are leaving things open for you.
That's great. That's a great call.
Maybe people are leaving things open for you so that you can. So we're not repetitive for the people.
I just like being right. I don't know about you guys. I like being right.
I'm trying to put a product out there. Coach of the year, it's Mike Pellegrino in charge of the cornerbacks. Coach of the half year. He's
for
doing
me,
it at a high level.
High level, to me, it's Steve Belichick, the architect of this defense, all the diversity and the variation of the scheme that they use, all of the cornerback position playing well, but also how he's able to marry that front 7 with the back end. I just like what they're doing, Steve Belichick.
I'm going to give it to Gerard Mayo for many of the same reasons, because I know he has a lot to do with how things are structured on that side of the ball. Steve gets a lot of credit because he's calling the plays, and so he deserves a lot of that credit. But let's give some credit to Mayo as well for the work that he's doing with that defense. They've been great.
Surprised to see. I'll go first again. I think it's easier when I do. Jake Bailey coming completely undone. Surprised to see it. I am.
I'm going to agree with you wholeheartedly on this one. I mean, Jake Bailey and the way that he's played this year, after being one of the best punters in the league last year, he has been so inconsistent, and I have no idea if he's just in his own head or what the deal is, but Jake Bailey is for sure that dude.
So for me, because punters are a little bit of a different breed, I'm never sure what to expect from those guys. And Jake Bailey, quite honestly, wasn't all that great last year. Now, I didn't expect him to be this bad, but be that as it may, my choice for surprise to see is actually, again, on the sort of negative side, Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry led the league in touchdowns for tight ends, just last year, tied with some of the best tight ends in football. Now he has one touchdown, that he caught from Bailey Zappi, and he hasn't exceeded 4 catches or 61 yards in any game this year. That's been a very big surprise on my behalf.
Not what you're looking for. Best offensive play of the first 9 games to me was Nelson Aguilar mossing, whoever he mossed, against the Steelers. Anybody else have something?
I liked Ramondre Stevenson's 35-yard run, Matt, to start the second half against the Jets, because it was just one of those runs. It showed us everything that has made him such a good player this year, where he breaks a tackle right at the line of scrimmage and does all the work on his own.
Yeah, for me, one play that stood out was in the Baltimore game. It's 4th and 1 in a situation where the Patriots needed to score. Mac Jones steps back. It's completely covered. He scrambles to his right. All of a sudden, he comes back to his left and keeps the play alive, finds Jonnu Smith for the first down, is able to extend the drive, go down, score the touchdown to keep them in striking distance in that game. And we know how that turned out, but I just thought it was a remarkable play. Great awareness by him, great field awareness, and I really thought that was a play that I've looked at and said, all right, that's Mac Jones at his best right there.
Of course, the yang to that yin is the worst offensive play. I got Mac in the end zone pick against the Ravens when communication broke down and Devontae Parker didn't get open because of some sort of confusion. I think that was an easy one. Matthew?
Yeah, you know what? In that same game, I'm going to say it was the first pick. It was a hard play action pass down the field. Linebackers get depth, and Mac tried to force that ball in, and that was really the turning point in that game in which they lost all their momentum. And so it was a bad pick. He just needed to check the ball down. But to me, that was probably the worst offensive play just because of the momentum and how they were playing in that game.
My choice was what turned out to be a really bad omen for this Patriots offense, because I think it kind of encompassed everything that has gone wrong with this Patriots offense this year. It was the play where Mac Jones actually ended up hurting his back in Miami, where the Patriots are facing a blitz. They have no idea how to protect it. Nelson Aguilar is somehow schemed up to be part of the protection plan there. Mac Jones ends up heaving one down the field, kind of dangerously, kind of carelessly, and he ends up getting injured. All of these things have been problems for them consistently through the first half. That was their worst play.
That was good. I like that one. I hadn't even thought of that.
That was good.
Worst defensive play. I don't know if anybody's going to trump this because they've actually played pretty well on defense. It's the Jalen Waddle touchdown just before halftime in the season opener when Kyle Duggar took kind of a shaky angle and let Jalen Waddle score from distance in a 22-7 Dolphins win. Anybody got anything that wants to trump that? Anybody have to get something off their chest? Because I want a prediction for the second half.
No, I like that one. I'm going to stick with you on that one, Tommy.
The only one that I could think of was the Justin Fields scramble on 3rd down. He ends up picking up a bunch of yards with his legs. That, to me, again, sort of indicative of what's been a problem for them through the first half is those running quarterbacks. You knew you'd get some problems from Lamar Jackson, but Justin Fields and the Bears. I wasn't expecting that. Bad play.
Well, the Patriots make the playoffs, guys. We'll keep it simple. My answer is simply it's a 2-letter answer. No.
I'm a no as well. I think they're probably 8 or 9 wins. I'm not sure that's enough.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you guys. I mean, the heart of the schedule in terms of just their opponents is coming up, and they've got some tough opponents. They're going to be on the road 2 West Coast trips. I just don't know if they're going to be able to get in that wild card race right now.
Well, they're in the lab right now trying to prove us wrong.
That's right.
Everybody, enjoy your bye week. See you soon.